Hey, what's up guys? Pablo Munoz here. Today I'm going to give you a breakdown of how I sculpted, detail, and render my fan art for the Fantastic Four, The Thing, or Ben Green. So it's going to be pretty cool, pretty chill. I just want to give you the different steps that I follow so that you can apply it to anything that you want. Let's go ahead and jump straight into it. All right, so here we go. This is my version of The Thing, which again is pretty stylized, and there's a few things that need to be fixed, but I just want to show you this as a general rule that I follow to create this type of characters. And as I said, it's something that I think you can apply to absolutely anything. I'm also going to cover how I did the quick render. This is a Marmoset Toolbag 5, and it's just a fantastic render that allows you to present your ZBrush models, even with Polypaint, really, really well. So let's go ahead and jump into ZBrush. And what I'm going to do is start with step 1. So I'm going to divide this in 5 very clear steps. The first one is going to be the blockout, and this is crucial. If you get a good blockout, you are good to go. So I'm using my custom version or my custom UI of ZBrush, which you can also download. Just go to my YouTube channel and you can find the tutorial where I covered this. I'll put a link in the description as well. But don't worry, I'm going to cover all the steps and I'm going to tell you where things are, which is pretty straightforward. So I'm going to click on the thumbnail here for the tool and I'm going to select a sphere. And then I'm just going to click and drag and press T. That is to enter in edit mode. And also I'm going to go ahead and change to a basic material. You can use anything that you want. And I'm also going to click on make polymesh. All right, so we now have a sphere and we can go ahead and start blocking our character. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the face. So this is going to be the head. Let's go ahead and open up the subtool palette and I'm going to click on append. I have a custom shortcut for this, which is Shift A. So I can press Shift A and essentially add any mesh that I want to my subtool list, but you can do it from here. So Shift A and I'm going to add a cylinder 3D. All right. So I'm also going to enable polyframe. So if I press the Shift and F, that also changes the polyframe. I also have the line off. So let's go back to more of a default way. And I just like to enable this so that I can visualize exactly which tool I'm using. So with the cylinder selected, I'm going to bring in my gizmo. I'm going to press the W key on my keyboard. And I'm just going to use this yellow controller to click and drag to scale this down. And I'm also going to push it down like so, maybe a little bit larger. So essentially what I'm trying to create here is the length of the face. So I'm going to shorten that a little bit and increase it again. All right, so the top part or like the sphere is kind of like the top of the hair or like the cranium. And this bit would be the rest of the face. Now in my concept, you see that the jaw is pretty pronounced, it's pretty big, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and do that or create like an indication of this object with a separate mesh, right? So let's go ahead and do that. So Shift A, again, this is a custom shortcut or you can click on append. And I'm gonna use a cylinder again. So let's go ahead and select that one, bring in the gizmo, and I'm going to go ahead and scale this down, maybe scale it up a little bit if you want to exaggerate things. And I'm going to rotate things around, press the Shift key just so that it snaps to the rotation. And I'm going to bring this down a bit, right? And perhaps we can just go ahead and tilt it just to increase that sort of grim look like so. All right, so now I'm looking at it from the front. If you're kind of like struggling to see what the different planes are, or in terms of the front, side view, top, all of that, I'm going to enable this cam view, which you can also do, by the way. You can click on preference. You can go all the way to the cam view here, and then you can enable your cam view. You can click next if you want different cam views. I think this one works just fine. Let's go ahead and do a couple more. I think I like this one. This is a custom one that I made. But yeah, this is basically to show that this is the front, this is the side, this is the back, etc. Right? Maybe this is not as clear. Let's use this one. This is another one that I made. All right. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and continue with the blockout. So the idea with this step is that you can use absolutely the most basic objects to create the look and feel of your object. So the volumes, right? So for example, Ben Grimm has a tiny nose. So what I'll do is the same thing, append cylinder. I'm going to select that one, bring in the gizmo. I'm going to push this forward and I'm going to scale it down quite a bit. I'm also going to rotate it in this angle. Yeah, holding the Shift key so that it snaps to integer numbers. And I'm going to scale it down a bit. So maybe a little bit more. All right. Don't try it. I think one of the main things that I would say at this stage is don't try to shape anything like more than this. Just use very basic shapes. And that is the idea, that you keep things very, very basic. Now let's go ahead and add some eyes. And for that, I'm going to show you a pretty cool trick that, again, is part of ZBrush, but you might not know about this. So if you go to the macro palette here and you open this app, this is basically where you can add your own custom macros and kind of like automate things. And you see I have a bunch of things that I've done myself, but in the defaults, so let me just collapse all of these, my macros and stuff like that. So these ones that say, sorry, these ones that say miscellaneous, those are macros that come with ZBrush. So there is one here that is called append eyes. So if I click on append eyes, ZBrush is going to take two spheres and is going to append them. I'm going to go into solo mode so you can see. It also attaches a specific material and color, but you can change all of that. The thing is that it just creates two eyes very easy. So I'm going to click on the move object. I'm going to make sure that symmetry is enabled by pressing the letter X on my keyboard. And I'm just going to move this forward a bit. And those are going to be my eyes. I'm going to push this in here. And if you go ahead and scale this down, you see it does it towards the center of the world. So you just need to make sure that you enable local symmetry. For you guys, if you don't have this UI, of course, you can find that in the transformation palette or transform palette. If you click on here, this is the one that I'm just using. So local symmetry allows you to change that on the fly. Now, the reason this is not working symmetrically is because dynamic is enabled. So this is one of the recent updates for ZBrush. So all you have to do is click on the dynamic little text that is within the switch. And now we can just go ahead and scale it like so. All right, so the placement of the eyes is gonna have like a big impact on how you read this character. So I think this works. Let's push it in a bit more. All right, so let's go ahead and do a couple more, and then I'll show you the result of this blocking stage so that I don't, waste all your time just looking at very basic objects. So I'm gonna go ahead and click append, and this time I'm gonna do a cube. So I'm gonna use a cube purely because I think this is gonna be an interesting way to create the eyebrows. Now, when you append a cube 3D, it has like a concentric sort of connection in here with triangles. So I don't want to have that. So all we need to do is go to the initialize tab here at the bottom. I'm going to click on initialize, and you see we have this slider. So I'm going to set this to 6 by 6 by 6. That's going to set the resolution of a Q cube, which I'm going to click now. So Q for quick cube. And you see it just creates a very simple cube. You can change this resolution, but I think this one is fine. All right. So now I'm going to bring this out. And I'm going to concentrate on one eyebrow on the left-hand side. So I'm going to scale this like so, maybe a little bit more. I'm going to exaggerate it. As you can see, if I go back to my my main concept of pen, this area is pretty pronounced as the eyebrow. So I'm going to do that with the cube, and I'm going to show you a pretty cool way of doing this. So let's go ahead and place this around here. So kind of like in the middle, I'm going to concentrate on this eyebrow. And I'm also going to subdivide it one time. So I'm going to click on subdivision, and you see it just sort of like smooth things a little bit. That's totally fine. And I'm also going to delete lower, right? At this point, I'm not worried about how many subdivisions I have, or if I use Sculptris Pro or Dynamesh, it doesn't really matter. Also, I'm going to turn off a local symmetry just in case, and I'm going to bring in the gizmo. Now, I'm going to put this closer to the face or to the head, and perhaps we can actually just adjust this rotation a little bit, right? Something like this. Now, the trick comes with one of the modifiers or deformers from the gizmo itself. So with the gizmo, I'm going to click on the gear icon, and the gear icon gives me access to all of this. So I'm going to click on the bend curve. So the bend curve creates these cones controllers, and you see I have 2 points, right? But if I click on this cone right here, the yellow one, and I increase that, I can increase that maybe to 5 points. You can go crazy with the amount of points, right? But I would advise that you keep the resolution to maybe 5 or 6 or something like this, because it's more manageable to, especially for the blocking stage. So this allows me to click on these points and adjust it. So I'm gonna start from the top so I can get this closer to the head and kind of like following the contour of the cranium. Like I said, this is just the blockout, so I'm not looking to give more like a lot of shape. I just want to make sure that I follow that sort of shape, and maybe this can sort of taper into the cranium like so. And then from this angle, I'm gonna increase that sort of like grim look. All right, so now that I'm happy with this, let's do a quick check. Maybe this needs to be lower. So I'm gonna click on the gear icon, and I'm gonna click on accept. Perfect. So this is ready to go. Now, in order to have this on the other side, I'm just gonna go ahead and click on mirror and weld. So mirror and weld is going to mirror this object and is going to weld it. Again, I'm not too worried about things like, if I go into solo mode, things like these gaps. I'm really not concerned about this because again, this is just the blocking, and we're gonna fix all of this in the next step. But if you're too concerned about this, what you can do is, let's undo this. I'm gonna move this slightly towards the center like so, and do it again, mirror and weld, and that should, get rid of that gap. All right, now the mirror and weld for you would be under the geometry. So this is the tool palette, then geometry, and then go to the modify topology, and it is in the mirror and well. This is the reason why I have this type of things in my custom UI, because trying to access this every time that I use it is going to be a little bit tedious, and I use this quite often. All right, so one more thing that we can do is kind of like add the top lip, which is pretty pronounced as well. So let's go back to the concept. You see, hopefully you can see this area right here of the top lip. So that would be very easy if we just take something like the sphere. And I just want to show you this as a part of the workflow. You can take this and duplicate it instead of adding a new one. So I'm going to click on duplicate with the sphere selected. And I'm just going to move that, and I'm going to scale it down. And maybe from this angle, I'm going to scale it so, and maybe rotate it a bit and squash it in the Z-axis. So I guess what I'm trying to show you in this process is that you don't need very complicated sculpting tools. As you can see, I haven't actually done any sculpting. This is purely moving very, very basic objects. And I know that this doesn't look like much, but if you trust the process, I'm telling you, this is going to work just fine. All right, so another thing that I want to do here, I want to click on the gear icon, and instead of using the bend curve, which you can use, let's go ahead and use the bend arc. That one, from this angle, if you select something like this green cone, hopefully you can see that in the recording. If I click on this, I can push it down, and you see it just arcs the whole thing. So I'm going to push this back a bit, and let's do it from this angle as well, just so that we can have that sort of curvature like so. And I think that works quite well. Let's push this in a bit more, closer to the nose. And this is one of the main things that I want to show you about this blocking stage, because when you can break down the volumes of a character or anything that you're working on and simplify it, you will be able to adjust it on the fly. So in this case, let's say the jaw is not working in this case, right? So I'm going to take that, select this. By the way, I'm holding the Alt key and clicking to select my other subtool that is for the jaw. And I'm going to scale this a little bit, and I'm going to push it forward, right? Because the jaw doesn't start at the back of the neck or the back of the face. So I'm going to push it forward a bit and adjust it, right? So now if you look at it from the front, it's more like it, right? So it's starting to shape up. I know this is super basic and it's not nowhere near where this final concept is, but it's all about taking the steps and make sure that you have that blocking correctly done. All right, and just to finalize this simple blockout of the face, I'm going to add a cube. So append cube. And I'm going to click on QCube. I already have it here in my UI. This is the one that I just showed you with the initialize tab. So I'm going to click on QCube. Oops, let's undo that. Make sure that you have the cube selected. All right, QCube. There we go. And I'm going to move it to the side or to the other side. It doesn't really matter. And what I want to try to achieve with this cube, when I stretch it in the Z-axis, is some kind of like zygomatic arc. So a very sharp, kind of like cheekbone in a way. So I'm going to rotate it like so. And then from here, and I'm going to rotate it here like so. All right, so let's try to position this a little bit better. You know what? Let's go ahead and subdivide it. If you subdivide it and it gets this sort of Cadman-Clark subdivision that smooths things out, one thing that you can do is you can turn off this SMT, which is the subdivide smooth modifier. And when you subdivide it, it won't take into account the Cadman-Clark subdivision. It's just going to literally divide what you have here. So I can delete lower, do it a couple times, and that's it. To turn this off, if you have the standard UI, you can just go to the subdivide button here on the geometry palette, and this is the SMT that I'm talking about. All right. So now we have a little bit more resolution to be able to do this, bring in something that we already worked on, or that we use a tool, and let's go ahead and use this bend arc to do something like. Again, we don't want to spend too much time sculpting or defining this too much. That's going to be for a different stage. All I want to do is kind of like embed this block in a way that I can use as my starting volume or as my starting point to literally sculpt later on the zygomatic arc in a way. So I think this one works quite well. If anything, we can maybe rotate it slightly. Yeah, so I think that works a little bit better. All right. And I'm going to click on mirror and well again to have it on the other side, and that's it. All right, so this is the absolute basics of the process of the workflow itself. So if I go ahead and bring in what I've already completed in terms of the blockout, you'll see what I mean. All right, so here is my blockout, and you see I have pretty basic shapes. In fact, I have them all in subtools, right? I have a bunch of subtools here. So if I enable polyframe and I select something like the body or like the chest, you see it's just a cube that I smooth out a little bit using the subdivision here. And I rotate it just to give that sort of hero or superhero with the large chest and all of that in this way. But then I also have the same one, the same cube that I just duplicated and rotated slightly different. And this is kind of like the thoracic cage in a way, or like the torso. And then I have this that is kind of like the belly towards the hips, right? But literally, these are three different blocks. And if you look at the final object or the final concept, doesn't have hands or anything, it's the same thing, right? It's just like obviously a bit more polished, but it has one big section here for the chest or the pectorals, and then you have the middle section and the bottom, right? So that's what I'm trying to do here. Now, other things that are very simple are the shoulders. They're just spheres. These are like the kind of like the deltoid. Then you have the actual arm is just a cylinder. This is the elbow, and this is the forearm. Now, to achieve this sort of like tapering effect, I'm just going to show you with something like, actually, let's append a cylinder, and I'll show you this because it's pretty cool. I'm going to select a cylinder, and just to achieve that, you can bring in the gizmo, the gear icon, and then click on taper. And then you can click on this one and taper it, right? You can also use the white cone to adjust the profile of that sort of tapering effect. And that's literally what I use. So I'm going to delete that one. There you go. For something, I think the one that has more deformation is actually this. This is a cube, right? That I just use the taper effect. And after using the tapering effect, I also use the bend arc. So a couple of tools that I just show you how to use. So you can achieve this type of like bending, let's say, for this large muscle. Other than what I showed you before, you see it's exactly the same thing. I have the neck, which is, again, another simple, smooth cube that has been tapered as well. And that is the basis of that neck. All right. So that concludes the first step, right? We already have this blockout. And the key thing that I want to show you here, or the idea with this step, is that it doesn't matter how long it takes you. If you have something that is solid, or that you have those volumes in place, then the rest of the process is going to be a lot more enjoyable and a lot easier to define, because all you have to think about is how to integrate the forms, how to refine the secondary shapes and all of that. But you don't have to think necessarily in terms of the proportions, although you can totally change them as well. So this one is one of my favorite methods, just to do it like this, because you don't have to do it in ZBrush. You can apply this same methodology of blocking things in anything. You can do it in ZBrush for iPad. You can do it in any other tool that allows you to have very simple geometric shapes. You can do it in Blender or anywhere else that you wanted to. So that's it for this blockout video. In the next one, I'm going to show you how we can adjust these volumes so that we can start shaping this into a more realistic or stylized version of the anatomy. I'll see you there.